What's going on, y'all? It's your man, Stephen Bardo, coming at you with another Flyin Illini report. This is where I cover the men's basketball team, the University of Illinois Fighting Illini, and give a weekly report of what's happened the week before and what I think is going to happen in their upcoming games. Last week was a tough week for the Illini. They had a postponement in the middle of their schedule, but they lost to both Maryland and Ohio State at home. Okay, so that's a little bit unusual. Home and roads this year aren't as important because you don't have to go into hostile environments, but it's still important because as a player at Assembly Hall, I knew where all the dead spots were. I knew how the rims were. I knew how the ball, if it would hit the rim a certain way, hit the backboard, how it would bounce off a certain way. Those things are important for basketball players because we're so ritualistic. And you know, having that insight can mean the difference between a late game situation that goes in your favor and not. So home court is still important. And so when you drop two games at home, one to Maryland and then one to Ohio State, it's a little disturbing. And if you notice, the Illini have been kind of in a funk in the last month. They got out slowly against Penn State. Then they rallied at halftime, and they got out slowly against Northwestern and threw 53 on Northwestern in the second half. They got out slowly again against Ohio State, and Ohio State is too good. They're too good. And here's the deal. I don't know if these Illini players understand that when there's a in-state kid that goes to another Big Ten school, he's coming back to kick the Illini's ass every single time. And if the players don't recognize that, that's a little disturbing to me because that's a given that a player that's from the state of Illinois probably wanted to play at the University of Illinois but didn't get recruited for whatever reason. If they have a chance to come back and beat the Illini, they're going to do it, as best they can. E.J. Liddell had a career high 26 points in Ohio State's 87-81 victory over Illinois. And so to me, that's a little bit disturbing where the Illini players I don't know if they didn't understand that or they weren't paying attention to the scouting report or E.J. Liddell just kicked their ass, but he did to the tune of a career high 26 points. So when I look at the Maryland game where Illinois lost and they seemed to struggle down the stretch scoring the basketball, I thought late game situations, Maryland did a really good job defending Io. They jumped on his right hand and forced him to go left. And as we've learned with Io, he's much less effective going left than he is when he goes right. So you tip your hat to the Maryland Terrapins for the defensive effort that they did on Io specifically, but overall against the Illini, I think it was a 66-63 victory for Maryland. So that was a heck of a victory for Maryland on the road. And then the Ohio State game that I just referenced, down the stretch, the Illini they struggled getting stops. And I'm not sure if it seems as though there's been a breach of trust. Something's happened with this Illini team because a lot of times, ladies and gentlemen, when you have a team that's as talented as the University of Illinois team is this year with two All-Americans on it, Io DeSumo and Kofi Coburn. Andre Curbelo is an outstanding freshman. Adam Miller hit 15, I believe it was, against Ohio State, a talented freshman. Illinois got everything. They've got size, they got depth, they've got experience. And so teams, when they're this talented, they're going through a situation like the Illini are, to me, it indicates there's a breach of trust. That could be a lot of things. That could be teammates getting upset at each other. That could be the team sees the coach getting on a player and the team doesn't agree with it. So they form kind of a rift between the coach. It happens on every team, ladies and gentlemen. This is not just to the Illini. This happens on almost every team. And you got to remember, this season is much more of a grind based on COVID and all the protocols and all the testing and the restrictions that these players and coaches have to be under. It's a grind. It's grueling. And so for the coaches that can be creative and kind of try to keep things fresh and do something of a surprise to get the guys kind of off the basketball court a little bit, but some kind of camaraderie situation, because it's very limited. Unless they rent out a movie theater or a bowling alley, which I guess they could do, but unless they do that, these guys can't really go and do things. They can't do a lot of things as a group. And so the creative coaches do a really good job of keeping things a little fresh, changing things up a little bit, because it's such a grueling season. But I think there's been a fracture of some sort with this Illini team, and time usually reveals all things. So we may or may not learn what the situation is, but if the Illini want to contend for a Big Ten title, they've got to rectify whatever it is very quickly. Because when you drop 2 games at home in the Big Ten, that pretty much, they have to be stellar from here on out. They have to steal a couple of victories on the road in order to keep themselves in contention for a Big Ten title. So coming up this week, the Illini host Penn State on January 19th. That's Tuesday. That's tomorrow. And then the Illini also will travel to Michigan State on Saturday. So right now with COVID affecting programs, Michigan State has had some positive tests and they've shut their program down. Now they're coming back. Nebraska has had 5 players plus Fred Hoiberg test positive for COVID-19. So some of these teams are coming off hiatuses like Michigan State. But let's talk about the Penn State game first. This was an entertaining, high-scoring game in the first matchup between Illinois and Penn State. And Illinois won sort of easily down the stretch. But at the beginning of the game, Penn State seemed to have their number. They got up early. And the Illini looked a little dead in the water, like we've seen them do in numerous first halves this year, where they just can't seem to get their motor going in the first half. But the Illini were able to win going away in that first matchup. You got to be careful against Penn State, ladies and gentlemen. They went to Purdue and played them tough. They lost. They went to Michigan and played Michigan tough in a 4-point loss. This is a scrappy team. They like to force turnovers. That's something that I think the Illini do a very good job of, is taking care of the basketball. They're not as susceptible as other Big Ten teams to a lot of pressure that Penn State will apply. But it'll be interesting to see if the Illini can come out of the gate playing, hard and fast and with life, because they seem lifeless in some of these first halves of recent games. I still expect them to beat Penn State, but it will probably be a little bit closer than Illini fans would find comfortable. In the second game, this is going to be very interesting. This is going to be tough for me to call, because Illinois at Michigan State. Michigan State's going to be coming off a hiatus. They're a team still struggling with their identity, I think. Aaron Henry has finally stepped up and assumed the mantle of the big dog, the main guy. I think he was a little reluctant at that, but he seems to, before this hiatus of Michigan State, he seemed to be really becoming much more aggressive. The Spartans were looking to get him the basketball a lot more. And so it would be very interesting to see how Michigan State looks coming out of this break and not, having a break in their season, how sharp they'll be against the Illini. The Illini, again, with Big Ten title aspirations, they should feel like they have their backs to the wall. And I would think that Brad Underwood, knowing him the way I do, they'll either be ready to play to start the game, or he'll wear them out in practice to where he thinks they might be ready to play. But either way, I would be very shocked that this Illini team, being a veteran ball club, going up to East Lansing, I don't care if there's no fans up there, they know they have to get a couple back on the road somewhere, and might as well start Saturday at Michigan State. I like the Illini in a close one, because I think Michigan State, like I said, I think they're starting to find their identity a little bit. They know that they've got to hold serve at home if they want to stay in contention. I believe they're 2-4 in the Big Ten race right now. So by all means, they're not out of contention, but they've got work to do, as do the Illini. But in this scenario, I see Illinois winning a close one at Michigan State on Saturday. If you want to join the Tribe, Bardo's Breakdown group, there's 2 ways to do it. Text me at 312-847-2739. That's 847. I'm sorry. That's 312-847-2739 to text, or go to Bardo's Breakdown group on Facebook to join the group. You get behind the scenes looks. I'll be doing March Madness picks, some really insider information that you'll receive if you either sign up on the text or you go to Bardo's Breakdown group on Facebook. The text number 312-847-2739, and then Bardo's Breakdown group on Facebook. Hope to see you guys there. Talk to you later. Peace, y'all.